Rachel Holt for NESN.com in the NESN Digital Studios. We're joined via Skype by Jeff Pearlman, former Sports Illustrated senior writer and now columnist for The Athletic. Jeff, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel.
Of course. So you have a new book out titled Football for a Buck, The Crazy Rise and Crazier Demise of the USFL. And you started thinking about this idea all the way back in high school. Why was now a good time to write it?
Because someone gave me a book deal. I wanted to do it for years. I don't think people are that interested in publishing in a book about a sort of obscure 30-year-old football league. But I just really wanted to do it. I love the USFL, pushed for the USFL for years and years. My last book was about Brett Favre. And when I got that book deal, I sort of asked if we could attach. I would take a little less money to do that if you'd let me do my passion project. So, I made almost no money. I only had a year to do it. I just spent a year living and dying with the USFL.
So Jeff, aside from future Hall of Famers like Jim Kelly and Reggie White, what were some of the USFL on-field innovations that made their way into the NFL?
Well, a lot of things. First of all, you had the two-point conversion. You had the coach's challenge. You had the run and shoot offense, where you had Jim Kelly and the Houston Gamblers. Jim Kelly, who later played with the Bills. Jim Kelly and the Houston Gamblers were going first pro team to ever go with 4 wide receiver sets, 5 wide receiver sets, no tight ends, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of that. Also, that the salaries of the NFL now, players don't know it, but they owe the USFL a ton because the NFL all of a sudden had to pay a lot more money for their players. And once that happened, it never went back again. So the huge amounts of money that guys are making now, whatever Le'Veon Bell ultimately signs for, he should give a portion of that to every USFL player because that league caused the salaries to skyrocket.
One of the names that people may associate with the USFL, Donald Trump. He was an owner of the New Jersey Generals. His decision to move the league from a spring schedule to a fall schedule, most could argue, was what led to its ultimate demise. Throughout your research, what did you learn about Trump that A, you didn't already know, and B, also resonates in his current job?
He never cared about the USFL, never. And I'm not coming from a left or right standpoint. I'm coming from a guy who researched a book about a football league standpoint. He never cared. He wanted an NFL franchise. That was the only reason he got involved in the USFL, was he thought it would land him an NFL team. So, he bought the New Jersey Generals after one season. In the lead up, all he did was talk about how much he loved the idea of the USFL. And as soon as he got in the league, it was, we need to move to fall. We need to challenge the NFL. During this time period, he's meeting secretly with Pete Rozelle, the NFL commissioner, trying to get him to give him an NFL team. Ultimately, he sort of bullied and forced and, lied to a lot of the other owners that fall is where it is and I can get us a great TV deal in the fall. And it was all just nonsense. It was all his need to have an NFL team. And when the USFL died, years later, he just called the USFL small potatoes. He dismissed it as small potatoes. And I always say, to the hundreds of football players who weren't going to be playing otherwise, to general managers, to vendors, to cheerleaders, on and on and on, the USFL was life. It was love and life. So when he just dismissed, he didn't care. He never cared about it. There was something about that was just terribly wrong.
You obviously felt very passionately about this project and you're very knowledgeable about it. What was the most fun part about writing this book?
Oh man, there was a team called the San Antonio Gunslingers, and they couldn't get out of their own way. They just couldn't get out of their own way, and they stopped paying their players late in the '85 season. They ran out of money, and one of my favorite things, at the end of the year, they had a defensive coach named Bill Bradley, a defensive backs coach, and he just got sick of not getting paid. So after the last game, they had all these folding chairs they had at the stadium, Alamo Stadium, and Bill Bradley rented a truck, stole these 6,000 folding chairs that owned by the San Antonio Gunslingers, and took them to Austin and sold them for like $10 a pop to a guy who bought folding chairs. And that was like his revenge over not getting paid by the Gunslingers for years and years. So just a million insanely weird, off-the-wall stories about a renegade football league.
What was the most difficult part about writing this book?
To be honest, it was the Trump part of it all, because you're sitting there and you're thinking, I don't want this book to be about Donald Trump. This isn't a Donald Trump book. And yet he was such a negative force in the league that you had to address it. So you're spending a lot of time researching this guy. Just as an example, he signed Doug Flutie, the Heisman Trophy winner out of Boston College, And he wrote a letter to all the other owners saying, I'm signing Doug Flutie for the good of the league, and I expect all the other owners to pay for it. All of you guys are benefiting, so you all should pay for it. And right around the same time, he was talking about the Mexico wall and how Mexico was going to pay for it. And I'm just sitting there researching this book thinking, this is unbelievable. It's unbelievable that he's using the same crappy playbook 30 years later on this nonsense. And I wanted to write a football book, and it is a football book, and it's a love letter book. But I could have done without Donald Trump being involved in it, you know?
Well, you have the Quaz Express on your website, a quick Q&A segment, so we thought we'd give you our own version of that. First, rank in order, favorite to least, Boston Red Sox, clam chowder, East Coast pizza, because we know you're on the West Coast right now, candlepin bowling, and Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, man. Pizza, donuts, chowder. I got nothing against the Red Sox. Red Sox and bowling, which I've never done.
Red Sox and bowling? You're from New York. All right, you don't count. Best Boston movie?
Oh, man. Good Will Hunting, without a doubt.
Okay. All right, you're good. You're good now. You're back in our good graces. Best all-time USFL Boston Breakers player?
Wait, say that again? Best what?
Best all-time USFL Boston Breakers player.
All right, so they had a player named Billy Don Jackson out of UCLA. He wasn't the best player on the field, but the Breakers got him. He was in jail on attempted murder charges, and he wound up playing for the Breakers. And I think that's a very USFL thing, to go from jail to the USFL.
All right, so you have a son, Emmett. Have you drafted your fantasy football team yet? And if so, what is the name of the team? I have a feeling it's going to be very creative.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm from Mahopac, New York. My son once invented an animal called the Gator Sore. So we are the Mahopac Gator Sores.
I love that. I love that. Jeff, where can we find more from you?
You can go to jeffpearlman.com and follow me on Twitter at Jeff Pearlman.
And we can buy the book at jeffpearlman.com?
Yeah, well, you can go. It'll just take you straight to Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com, or so you could just take out the middleman and just go straight there, or whatever you want to do.
All right, check it out. Thanks so much for your time, Jeff. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.